The day my dad was wheeled into the emergency room, Shen Qingtang sent me a message. His first words weren't about what the doctor said, or whether we had enough money. He only sent 7 words: figure it out yourself. I stood in front of the hospital payment window, clutching the prepayment notice. It clearly stated, emergency surgery for aortic dissection. Estimated cost, 800,000 yuan. A deposit is required first. The nurse at the window looked at me, her voice softening. The family should decide as soon as possible. The patient's condition can't be delayed. I looked down at my phone, my knuckles tightening. Half a minute earlier, I had called Shen Qingtang 3 times. The first call was disconnected. The second went unanswered. The third one connected. It was noisy on his end. Like a banquet hall. Someone was testing their microphone. Someone was laughing. Someone was shouting President Shen. I said, Qingtang. My dad is critically ill. He needs surgery. The hospital wants 800,000 yuan up front. I don't have enough cash on hand right now. Could you transfer it to me first? I'll make up the difference later. He was silent for 2 seconds. Then he said, He Jie. Your father's illness shouldn't bankrupt our family. I thought I misheard. I asked, what did you say? His tone was somewhat impatient. I've made myself clear. The company's annual meeting is tonight. I'm incredibly busy right now. Your father's matter. You handle it yourself. Aren't you always so capable? Didn't you say you have patents and technology? You can't even come up with 800,000. I stared at the red light on the emergency room door, my throat feeling like it was blocked. Shen Qingtang. That's my father. I know. He sighed softly. That's why I'm letting you figure it out yourself. You can't use your parents' affairs to hold your partner hostage forever. Your father is old. Treatment costs are a bottomless pit. You need to be rational. When he said be rational, his voice was very calm. So calm that it suddenly felt unfamiliar to me. A gentle male voice came from the other end of the phone. President Shen. I've revised the script for you. When you present me with the award later, just read it. Don't overwork yourself. I've poured you some hot water. It was Duan Xinian, the male secretary next to Shen Qingtang. Before I could speak, Duan Xinian seemed to deliberately move closer to the phone, smiling as he asked, Brother He, is your uncle in the hospital? Should I talk to President Shen for you? But tonight's company annual meeting is indeed very important. President Shen can't let family matters affect the overall situation. Family matters. My dad is lying in the emergency room. In his words, it became a personal matter affecting the overall situation. Shen Qingtang didn't stop him. He just said to me, don't take it personally. Xinian. He's only thinking of the company. Many clients and investors are here tonight. I can't leave. I slowly closed my eyes. I suddenly understood. 6 years of marriage could really be shattered in a single sentence. Shen Qingtang and I have been married for 6 years. During his most difficult time starting his business, I sold the small house my mother left me, giving him 2.3 million to supplement his cash flow. When his first-generation medical equipment algorithm was unstable, I stayed up for 8 months straight, writing the core model of the Chengwang perfusion monitoring system. When he couldn't get hospital trial opportunities, I took the prototype to each hospital, using all the connections I had with my teachers, senior colleagues, and old clients. He hugged me then and said, Jie, wait until Yaoling wakes up. I won't mistreat you. I won't mistreat Dad either. I believed him. And my dad believed him too. Every time he saw Shen Qingtang, he smiled gently, afraid that he was too busy. He didn't even dare to keep him for meals. But now my dad is critically ill. He said he couldn't drag our family down. The our family he spoke of never included my dad. Duan Xinian spoke again on the phone. His voice was low, with that feigned consideration. Brother He, I'm not trying to criticize you. A man should be responsible. President Shen has already worked hard enough. How can you ask him for money at a time like this? 800,000 is indeed not a small amount. He still has to give the core team year-end bonuses tonight. The funding arrangements have already been finalized. I suddenly opened my eyes. Year-end bonuses. Shen Qingtang seemed to sense something was wrong. His tone became serious. You don't need to worry about who gets the bonuses from the company's finance department. He didn't speak. Duan Sinian chuckled. Brother He. Don't misunderstand. President Shen is just rewarding those who are truly dedicated. The people at the forefront of the company. I'm in charge of 3 key clients this year. A higher bonus and profit sharing are only fair. I stared at my phone screen. Suddenly. It felt absurd. How much? I asked. Shen Qingtang coldly replied. He Jie. Are you interrogating me? Duan Sinian. However. Seemed unable to suppress his smugness. Not much. Just 5 million. President Shen said. Talent deserves to be seen. 5 million is my dad's surgery deposit of 800,000. He said my dad can't drag our family down. Then he turned around and gave his male secretary a 5 million bonus. At that moment, the smell of disinfectant in the hospital corridor stung my eyes. But I didn't argue. I didn't curse. I just chuckled softly. Shen Qingtang heard me. Her tone grew even colder. What are you laughing at? Nothing. I just suddenly realized something. Realized what? I looked at the emergency room door. My voice was so calm it surprised even myself. Realized that you don't deserve to use my things anymore. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Duan Sinian laughed first. Brother He. Your words are a bit harsh. There's no such thing as yours or mine between husband and wife. Yaoling is where it is today because of President Shen's guidance. Don't take your anger out on the company just because your uncle is sick. I ignored him and only told Shen Qingtang. Tonight. There will be remote maintenance on the company's equipment. I won't be online. Tomorrow. There will be abnormal clinical data. And I won't handle it either. From now on. Don't contact me for any patches. Model iterations. Or customer inquiries for the orange light system. Shen Qingtang finally reacted. He Jie. Stop making trouble. I said. I'm not making trouble. Do you know how many customers there are tonight? Do you know how important the trial run acceptance at Guangren Hospital is tomorrow? You're trying to ruin me by abandoning your responsibilities now. I held the payment slip and said softly to Shen Qingtang. You already ruined me once while my father was being treated. He paused. Then. As if suppressing his anger. He said in a low voice. Jie. I know you're upset right now. But you need to be more mature. We'll talk about your father's matter later. Tonight. You just need to keep an eye on the company system. Don't cause trouble at crucial moments. Be mature. Be generous. Don't be petty. Don't cause trouble. He said these words too many times over the years. Duan Sinian couldn't book a hotel for his business trip. He asked me to give up the room we originally planned for our anniversary. He said he just joined the company and asked me to take care of him. Duan Sinian had a stomachache. He asked me to deliver medicine in the middle of the night. Saying it wasn't easy for him to live alone in the city. Duan Sinian changed my technical proposals into his own reports. He said the authorship didn't matter. It was all for the company's good. And I tolerated it time and time again because I thought marriage meant mutual support. Only today did I realize that what he wanted wasn't support. But my endless concessions. The nurse urged the family again. Have you decided? I looked at him and nodded. I'll pay for the surgery. Before hanging up. Shen Qingtang was still saying. He Jie. Don't be impulsive. I'll be there after the annual meeting tonight. I hung up immediately. Then I dialed another number. President Jean, I said. Does the patent acquisition you mentioned last time still count? Jean Nanchuan was visibly taken aback. Engineer He. You've finally come to your senses. I glanced at the red light on the emergency room's light. If it's serious. Send a lawyer to the hospital tonight. I'll sell Qingguang's 3 core patents. Jean Nanchuan's voice became serious. What about Yaoling? I said calmly. They only have a non-exclusive license. And it expires next month. It's clearly stated in the contract. I have the right not to renew it. There was a 3-second silence on the other end of the phone. Then Jean Nanchuan said. 60 million. I can pay a 10 million deposit tonight. I'll have someone handle your father's surgery fees simultaneously. After hanging up. I opened WeChat. Shen Qingtang had sent me several messages. Don't bring family matters to the company. Focus on system maintenance tonight. The 4-year annual profit sharing was approved by the board. Don't be unreasonable. I'm not ignoring your father's situation. But I hope you'll be rational. The last message was from Duan Sinian. Brother He. The worst thing about a man is someone who lacks ability but loves to show off. If your father really needs money to save his life, I suggest you don't argue with President Shen. After all, not everyone is worth President Shen spending 5 million to save. I stared at that sentence for a long time, then saved a screenshot. At that moment, I felt no anger, only a completely cold and clear-headed feeling. I put my phone in my pocket and walked to the payment window. Swipe this card first. I handed over my bank card. The nurse asked if there was enough in it. I said I'd buy it right away. 10 minutes later, a 10 million deposit arrived in my account. At the same time, the live broadcast of Shen Qingtang's company annual meeting began. On the screen, she stood in the center of the stage in a silver-white dress. Beautiful, dazzling, and composed. She smiled and said to the audience, "Tonight, I want to especially thank someone. Over the past year, he accompanied me to work overtime, talked to clients with me, and helped Yaoling through the most difficult period. He is my special assistant, Duan Xinian." The camera cut to the audience. Duan Xinian stood up, his face full of humility, but his eyes couldn't hide his pride. Shen Qingtang personally handed him a check symbolizing 5 million in dividends. The audience erupted in applause. The live chat was flooded with blessings. President Shen is so generous. Secretary Duan is young and promising. These are true soulmates. I stood at the end of the hospital corridor, watching the couple being jeering at by the crowd on the screen. Suddenly, I smiled. Soulmates. Very well. Let them face this together. Without me, there would be no more Yaoling. The emergency room door opened. The doctor rushed out. "Family, has the payment been received? We can arrange surgery immediately." I put my phone away. "The payment has been received." The doctor nodded, turned, and went back inside. The red light came on again. I leaned against the wall and sent my first message to my lawyer. "Help me draft 2 documents, first, the Orange Light System Patent Transfer Agreement, second, the divorce agreement." The moment the message was sent, Shen Qingtang called again. I didn't answer. From that moment on, his calls were no longer more important than my father's life. After my father's surgery began, I sat in the hospital corridor for a full 5 hours. At 2 a.m., Jean Nanchuan's lawyer arrived at the hospital with the documents. The other party's surname was Zhou. She was a woman around 40 years old. He spoke crisply and efficiently. He laid out the patent documents in front of me, checking them item by item. "Mr. He's intraoperative risk monitoring algorithm for Qingguang perfusion, and the predictive model dynamic imaging calibration module, all 3 patents are under your personal name. Yaolin Medical currently holds a 5-year non-exclusive license. The license expires on the 15th of next month." I nodded. Attorney Zhou added, "There's no automatic renewal clause in the contract. That means, if you don't renew, Yaolin has no right to continue using the core module. The opposing company, Lichuan Medical, is willing to acquire the complete ownership of the 3 patents for 60 million and bear all the expenses your father incurred during his treatment. They won't have to bear the treatment costs." I said that selling the patents was a commercial transaction, not an attempt to elicit sympathy. Attorney Zhou glanced at me and nodded, understanding. The 10 million deposit had already been received. The remaining balance would be paid in 2 installments after the ownership transfer was submitted. My hand was very steady when I signed. Not like someone who had just been abandoned at the hospital by his wife. On the bench next to me, Uncle Chen, my dad's old neighbor, stayed with me the whole time. He saw me finish signing inside. "Ah, Qingtang really didn't come." I shook my head. And Uncle Chen hesitated, as if he wanted to say something but then stopped. I knew what he wanted to say. Shen Qingtang has been very good at dealing with people in front of others all these years. During holidays, he buys my dad gift boxes and posts on social media thanking him for supporting our family. Many people in my dad's neighborhood praise me for marrying a good wife, saying she's beautiful, capable, and successful, and doesn't look down on our ordinary family background. But they don't know that I bought all those gift boxes. And Duan Xinian wrote the social media posts for her. And every time my dad wants him to stay for a meal, he always says he's busy. Once, My dad stewed beef brisket for 6 hours and called him beforehand to say that Qingtao likes it softer. He agreed. But then had to go meet a client with Duan Sinian at the last minute. That night, my dad reheated the food 3 times. Finally, he smiled and told me it was okay. That Qingtang being busy was a good thing. And that young people should focus on their careers. I even tried to explain for him back then. Looking back now, I realize I was the truly ridiculous one. At 3:30 a.m., Shen Qingtang finally arrived at the hospital. She had changed out of her company party dress and was wearing a black coat. Her makeup still meticulously done. Duan Sinian followed behind her, carrying a thermal bag. When they appeared in the corridor, several nurses on duty at the nurses' station looked over. Shen Qingtang didn't glance at the emergency room first, but rather at the file bag in front of me. He frowned. You really hired a lawyer? I looked up at him. Your first question upon arriving at the hospital is about the documents. His face stiffened. Then he lowered his voice. He Jie. Let's not make a scene at the hospital. Duan Sinian immediately placed the thermal bag on the bench and said gently. Brother He. President Shen rushed here as soon as the company party ended. He didn't even attend the celebration banquet. This is some soup I had someone make. Drink some. Don't ruin your health. His words were so considerate. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was such a thoughtful friend. I looked at him. When my dad's surgery cost 800,000 yuan. You said not everyone deserves Mr. Shen's 5 million yuan to save them. Now, sending soup is just a way to accumulate good karma. Duan Xinyan's expression changed slightly. Shen Qingtang immediately frowned. He Jie. Don't speak so harshly. I laughed. Harsh. Sinian meant well. He meant well. I took out my phone and opened the screenshot. This is what he said. Right. I handed the screen to him. It clearly stated. Not everyone deserves Mr. Shen's 5 million yuan to save them. Shen Qingtang glanced at it. His brows furrowing even more tightly. Not at Duan Sinian. But at me. Why did you take a screenshot? A small conflict between husband and wife. And you're already keeping evidence. It's not a conflict between husband and wife. I said I've finally learned to protect myself. A hint of impatience flashed in his eyes. He Jie. I know you're angry that I didn't transfer the money immediately. But tonight's company annual meeting is related to financing. The 5 million yuan bonus wasn't decided by me alone. Sinian has indeed worked hard this year. He has value in taking this money. I looked at him and asked. My dad has no value. Shen Qingtang was stunned. I asked you again. Did you have value in providing technical support for your company for 6 years? He remained silent. Duan Sinian quietly interjected. Brother He. That's not how you calculate value. Uncle is sick. We are all very sad. But companies have their rules. As CEO, President Shen cannot break the company's incentive system because of personal feelings. I nodded. Well said. Duan Sinian thought I was convinced. A hint of smugness appeared in his eyes. I continued. Then starting today, I will also follow the rules. Shen Qingtang looked at me warily. What do you mean? You mean? The non-exclusive license for the orange light system expires next month. I won't renew it. His expression changed drastically. He Jie. This shout attracted many people in the corridor to turn around. I looked at him calmly. Keep your voice down. This is a hospital. He took a step closer. His voice was low, but it was filled with obvious anger. Do you know what you're saying? Chengwang is Yaoling's most important product line this year. Guanren Hospital, the third affiliated hospital, and Kanghua Group are all waiting for inspection. Now you're saying you won't renew. Are you trying to bring the whole company to a standstill? Didn't you say businesses have their own rules? I countered. The contract expired. It's legal and compliant for the rights holder not to renew. But I'm your wife. My father is my father too. After these words, the corridor fell silent for a moment. Shen Qingtang's expression finally changed slightly. But quickly, he regained his CEO-like composure. He Jie. Don't use dad to pressure me. I didn't say I wouldn't save him. I just felt you should figure out a way to pay this money first. We can't have all the pressure on me as a couple. Hearing this, I suddenly wanted to laugh. All the pressure on you. I opened my mobile banking app and showed him a prepared bank statement. In 2019. Your company's cash flow dried up. I sold the small house my mother left me and transferred 2.3 million to you. In 2020. Your father's investment failed. Owing suppliers 1.1 million. I paid it off for you. In 2021. Your brother Chinjua didn't have enough for a down payment on a house. Your mother came to me crying. I earned 800,000. In 2022. Your company's first batch of prototypes returned to the factory. I advanced 460,000 for parts. In 2023. Duan Xinyan's mother was hospitalized. You asked me to lend him 200,000. Saying he was pitiful. He hasn't paid it back yet. I scrolled down the list. One by one. To Shen Qintang. Who has been bearing the pressure all these years. He looked at the money. His lips turning pale. Duan Xinyan immediately said. Brother this is meaningless. Is there any affection left between husband and wife if you calculate everything so clearly? I looked up at him. When are you going to pay back the 200,000 you owe me? His expression froze. Shen Qintang frowned. That 200,000 was what I asked you to lend me. Why are you arguing with Xinyan now? Okay. I nodded. Then consider it a loan. We'll settle it together during the divorce. Shen Qintang's pupils contracted. Divorce. I pulled another agreement from the file folder and placed it in front of him. Divorce. He stared at the agreement. As if for the first time truly realizing that things were out of his control. After several seconds. He finally let out a cold laugh. Jie. You want to divorce me over 800,000 yuan. I looked at him. My last bit of warmth turning cold. It's not because of 800,000 yuan. Then what is it because of? Because my father is in critical condition. You gave another man 5 million yuan at the annual party. Because I begged you to save my life. You told me to be rational. Because when Duan Xinyan stepped on my father. You told me not to hold it against him. I paused. Then said. Word by word. Because of these past 6 years. I've finally seen clearly. Neither my father nor I are worth anything to you. Shen Qintang's eyes flickered. Duan Xinyan immediately grabbed his shoulder. President Shen. Don't let him lead you astray. He's emotionally unstable right now. My gaze fell on his hand. Shen Qintang didn't flinch. Fine. Very well. I picked up my phone and took a picture of them. Shen Qintang angrily said. Why are you keeping evidence? I'll tell you. So that when we divorce. No one will say I'm being unreasonable. Duan Xinyan finally couldn't keep up the act anymore. His face darkened. Jie. Don't go too far. I looked at him calmly and said. The worst is yet to come. Just then. The emergency room door opened. The doctor came out. Took off his mask. The surgery went smoothly for now. The patient was transferred to the ICU for observation. The family went to handle the formalities. I stood up. My legs were a little numb from sitting for so long. Uncle Chen quickly helped me up. Shen Qintang subconsciously spoke. Jie. I didn't look at him. I only told the doctor I was going to handle it. As we brushed past each other. He suddenly grabbed my sleeve. Jie. The patent matter. You can't act impulsively. I looked down at his hand. This hand had personally given Duan Xinyan a 5 million yuan bonus just hours ago. Now he wanted to seize my patent. I slowly pulled my sleeve away. Shen Qintang. You've already made your choice. His face was pale. What did I choose? I glanced at Duan Xinyan. You chose 5 million. After saying that. I turned to handle the ICU formalities. Behind me. Duan Xinyan lowered his voice and said. President Shen. He was just scaring you. Patents are marital property. He can't sell them. I paused. I didn't turn around. Duan Xinyan didn't know. The initial application dates for those 3 patents were a full 8 months earlier than when Shen Qintang and I got our marriage certificates. He didn't know that. Because he never really cared. He never knew how I had dragged him up there. After my father was transferred to the ICU. I stayed at the hospital overnight. The next morning at 9 a.m. Yaolin Medical's technical group exploded. Gong. The data at Guanren Hospital is drifting. Please take a look. Gong. The model interface is reporting an error. The client is waiting for Gong on site. General Manager Shen said you need to be online within 10 minutes. In the past. Whenever I received such a message. No matter where I was. I would immediately turn on my computer. Once, I had a high fever of 39 degrees Celsius. Shen Qingtang sat on the edge of the bed with his laptop and softly said, "Jie, help me one last time. Just one last time." I was dizzy and lightheaded from the fever. But I still managed to modify the code for 3 hours. Later, I found out that the so-called last time was because Duan Xinian forgot to synchronize the client configuration, causing the on-site demonstration to crash. But Shen Qingtang told everyone that Duan Xinian had saved the project with his on-the-spot response. I didn't argue because I thought he understood. Now that I think about it, he wasn't unaware. He just felt I didn't need to be seen. I watched the messages popping up in the tech group and only replied with one sentence: for after-sales service within the authorized scope. Please follow the company procedures. I will no longer provide personal assistance. The group was silent for 3 seconds. Then, Shen Qingtang called. But I didn't answer. He then sent a WeChat message to He Jie. Guanren Hospital is our biggest client this year. Don't be willful. We can talk about what happened last night. But you can't joke about the company. Your father has already had surgery. What else do you want? I looked at the last sentence and felt a cold needle prick my chest. My father has already had surgery. So I should continue to be his free technician. I replied that I wanted a divorce. After sending the message, he didn't reply. At 11 a.m., Duan Xinian sent a voice message. I clicked on it. His voice carried a deliberately suppressed laugh. Brother President Shen is very angry right now. Actually, why did you have to do this? It's so ugly for a couple to fight like this. Isn't it just about money with your father? Just beg President Shen. He will definitely help you. Men sometimes shouldn't be ashamed of bowing their heads. I saved the voice message and then replied with 200,000 yuan. To be returned by 6 p.m. today. Duan Xinian didn't say anything more. At noon, I went to see my dad outside the ICU. He had tubes in his body. His face was pale, and he looked like he had suddenly aged 10 years. I stood outside the glass. My heart tightening. My mother passed away early. My dad raised me alone. We were poor when I was young. He worked 3 shifts in a machine factory. And his hands always smelled of machine oil. But he never made me feel like I was inferior to others. The day I got into university, he drank 2 bottles of beer and sat on a small stool downstairs, laughing for half the night. Later, when I was working on medical algorithms, he would tell everyone, "My son is working on life-saving things." But I, the one working on life-saving things, almost couldn't even protect my own father's life last night. At 4 p.m., Attorney Zhou sent me the preliminary patent transfer agreement. At the same time, he reminded me, Mr. That Yaolin Medical might hold a client appreciation live stream after the annual meeting tonight. The Shen team is releasing information to the public, saying that the Qingguang system RD team is stable and that the core technology completely belongs to Yaoling. I laughed when I saw this statement. He really hasn't changed at all. Even if the technology isn't his, he dares to claim it as his. At 7 p.m., a condensed video of Yaoling's annual meeting was released on the company's official account. The title was beautiful: Yaoling Medical Annual Ceremony. Joining true partners for a starlit journey. The first half of the video featured Shen Qingtang's speech. He stood center stage. His voice firm. Yaoling has come this far because of its team, trust, and the people who have fought alongside it. The camera then cut to Duan Xinian. He went on stage to receive a 5 million yuan bonus. Bowing slightly, Shen Qingtang personally said, "Duan Xinian is my most trusted partner." Some people in the audience jeered. "Just a partner." Shen Qingtang smiled. She neither denied nor explained. The lights in the video shone on her and Duan Xinian. One was beautiful and strong. The other young and gentle. They did indeed look very much like the soulmates people talked about. The comments section quickly became lively. President Shen and Secretary Duan are a perfect match. Excellent people should stand with excellent people. I heard that President Shen's husband is just an ordinary engineer. The difference is too big. Secretary Duan is young and understands him. She's much better than the one at home. Right. I looked at those comments. I wasn't angry. In the past, I might have felt bad. I would have wanted to explain. I would have wanted Shen Qingtang to come forward and clarify. But not now. When a person is truly leaving, they are too lazy to prove that they haven't lost. At 8 p.m., the live broadcast of Yaoling Medical's customer appreciation event began. I hadn't planned to watch it, but Uncle Chen came over with his phone. His face red with anger. Jie. Look at what this man is saying. On the screen, Duan Sinian was answering the host's questions. The host asked Assistant Duan. This time, Yaoling Qingguang's system was able to win multiple hospital pilot projects. What do you think is the most crucial factor? Duan Sinian smiled. I think it's execution. Technology is just the foundation. What truly makes the product a reality is management communication and customer trust. The host then asked. I heard that there is a mysterious engineer behind the Qingguang system. Duan Sinian smiled even more humbly. Every company has behind-the-scenes personnel. But Yaoling has never relied on any one person. We don't encourage individual heroism. Especially in the medical industry. Emotionally driven, family-oriented personal decisions are very dangerous. Immediately, someone in the live chat asked, are you talking about President Shin's husband? I heard he threatened the company because of his personal family matters. Duan Sinian didn't deny it, only sighing softly. I can only say that President Shin has had a tough time. He's endured a lot of pressure he shouldn't have had to bear over the years. I laughed, thinking, they're really good at throwing mud. Not long after, Shen Qingtang appeared in the live stream. He looked somewhat tired, but remained calm. The host asked him, President Shen, there's some speculation about the ownership of Yaoling's core technology. What's your opinion? He looked directly at the camera. Yaoling's technology belongs to the entire Yaoling team. Anyone who tries to threaten the company with personal emotions cannot stop Yaoling from moving forward. After he finished speaking, applause erupted in the live stream. Duan Sinian led the applause. I immediately received a message from Shen Qingtang on my phone. See, I gave you a way out. Now, as long as you come back and deal with the problems at Guangren Hospital, we can pretend nothing happened. I stared at the screen and slowly typed. Shen Qingtang. Have you forgotten who the first 3 patent applicants for the Qingguang system were? It took them a long time to reply to He Jie. You insisted on making things awkward for everyone. I replied. It's not that I wanted to make trouble. It's that you've already broadcast the awkwardness publicly. He didn't reply again. A minute later, Duan Sinian suddenly mentioned me in the live broadcast. He said, actually, I respect engineer He very much. He contributed to the company's early technology. But the company's development cannot be hijacked by a few individuals. We will protect Yaoling in a more mature way. And also protect President Shen. He said this in a grand and dignified manner. But the next second, the live broadcast suddenly froze. The data curves on the Qingguang system demonstration interface on the background screen began to jump wildly. The on-site staff were obviously panicked. The host's smile froze. Duan Sinian still wanted to smooth things over. It was a signal problem on site. Just then, the director of Guangren Hospital called Shen Qingtang's phone. The live broadcast audio was not turned off. Everyone heard a middle-aged man. The man's voice was furious. Mr. Shen. What's wrong with your system? The intraoperative simulation risk value just now jumped to 99. You dare to use this kind of thing for clinical trials? Shen Qingtang's face changed instantly. He subconsciously looked at Duan Sinian. Duan Sinian also panicked. I'll turn off the live stream. Less than 10 seconds later, Shen Qingtang called. This time I answered. He could barely keep his voice down. He Jie. You need to go online immediately. I sat on a bench outside the ICU, looking at the cold white light at the end of the corridor. Why? Now is not the time to be stubborn. I think so too. I said. So you should find your most trusted partner to handle it. He was breathing rapidly. For years. Not from a technical background. But you just said that Yaoling can't rely on one person. He was speechless. After a few seconds, he softened his voice. Jie. I'm begging you. The Guangren project can't go wrong. This was the first time he had begged me on the phone. Unfortunately, it was too late. I said. Shen Qingtang. My dad can't go wrong last night either. The other end of the phone went completely silent. I continued. I begged you back then. His voice trembled. I I didn't abandon him. You just didn't think he was worth it. I hung up. At the same time, Jean Nanchuan sent a message. Hegong's 60 million acquisition plan has been approved by the board of directors. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. the signing ceremony for Lichuan Medical Headquarters will take place. I replied with a single word, okay. Outside the hospital window, the city lights shone brightly. And I finally shut down that dream that had lasted for 6 years. The next morning, my father's condition stabilized somewhat. The doctor said the surgery was timely. But the next few days would still be dangerous. We would need to see the results of the ICU observation. I stood outside the ward, carefully listening to every word of the instructions. For the past 6 years, I had always been helping Shen Qingtang, handling all sorts of emergencies at the company. Clients calling in the middle of the night, abnormal equipment data, algorithm model crashes, hospital directors getting angry, investors pressing for progress. He only needed a word, help me, and I'll be there immediately. But when my father truly needed me, I realized I had given too much time to unworthy people. 9 a.m. Shen Qingtang arrived. He didn't bring Duan Xinian this time. He stood in the corridor. His complexion much worse than last night. His usually impeccably styled hair was somewhat disheveled. And there were dark circles under his eyes. The first thing he said to me was about the company. Guanren's situation is temporarily under control. But the third hospital and Kanghua are also demanding a re-verification of the system's stability. I calmly replied. It has nothing to do with me. His voice tightened. He Jie. What exactly do you want? Divorce. Non-renewal of the patent. Debt settlement. He seemed stung by those 3 words. Our 6-year relationship. You have to calculate it all so clearly. I looked at him. When you gave Duan Xinian 5 million last night, you were quite calculating too. A hint of embarrassment flashed across his face. That's company policy. My patent licensing is also based on contracts. But you can't take it away when the company is at its most critical. I looked at him, suddenly remembering what he had said last night. Shen Qingtang, one can't use the company to hold their partner hostage forever. He froze. When I returned those words to him verbatim, he seemed to realize how cold I had been. He was silent for a moment, his voice softening slightly. Jie. I admit I spoke too harshly last night. I can pay for Dad's surgery. I smiled. I've already paid. He was stunned. Where did you get the money to sell things? He immediately became alert. What did you sell? I didn't answer. He stepped forward and asked Jie. Have you already contacted Li Chuan? I looked at him. You're quick on the ups and downs. Are you crazy? His voice suddenly rose. Then lowered again. Afraid of disturbing the hospital. Li Chuan is Yaoling's biggest competitor. Giving them the patent is like stabbing me in the back. When you gave Duan Xinian 5 million, did you ever think about stabbing me in the back? That's not the same thing. It's the same thing with me. His chest heaved, clearly trying to suppress his anger. You're just angry now. Once you calm down, you'll regret it. No matter how good the conditions Li Chuan offers you, they won't really treat you as one of their own. They're just using you to attack Yaoling. I nodded. At least they have a price tag. His face paled. I continued. And you've used me for 6 years and only given me 1 sentence. Your father shouldn't have dragged this family down. His eyes were slightly red. But I no longer softened because of his red eyes. In the past, if Shen Qingtang showed even the slightest weakness, I would back down. He knew this. So he never truly apologized. He would only show me a little tenderness when things were about to get out of control. And I, like someone who had been tamed, would always convince myself, it's okay. He's under a lot of pressure. It's okay. Starting a business isn't easy. It's okay. We shouldn't be so calculating as husband and wife. But in the end, my father was lying in the ICU. And his male secretary was receiving applause on stage with 5 million yuan. It wasn't worth it. At 10 a.m., Attorney Zhou came to the hospital to pick me up to go to the headquarters of Lichuan Medical. When Shen Qingtang saw Attorney Zhou, her face completely changed. Attorney Zhou, you really signed it? Attorney Zhou nodded politely. Mr. Shen will be signing a patent transfer agreement with Lichuan Medical today. If you have any objections to the ownership, you can raise them through legal channels. Shen Qingtang sneered. I'm his wife. Of course I have objections. Attorney Zhou's tone was calm. Based on the current materials, all 3 patents belong to Mr. He. He independently developed and applied for them before marriage. The contract authorizing Yao Ling to use them also clearly states that Mr. He retains full disposal rights. The marital relationship does not change the initial ownership of the patents. Shen Qingtang's face visibly stiffened. He looked at me. You've been wary of me all along. I said. It's not that I'm wary of you. It's that you yourself were unwilling to buy the patents back then. Of course. He didn't remember. When Yao Ling was just starting out, I mentioned once that if the company wanted to use the orange light system as its core product long-term, it would be best to buy the patents at a fair price or sign a long-term exclusive license. Shen Qingtang said at the time. We're husband and wife. There's no need to be so commercial. What's yours is mine. And what's mine is yours. I was soft-hearted then and only signed a 5-year non-exclusive license at a price almost symbolic. Now he finally understands that being married is not a reason for him to unilaterally possess me. On the way to Lichuan, Attorney Zhou handed me a list. Mr. He, I said. This is a list we've compiled of Yaoling Medical's external publicity over the past 3 years regarding your patents. Some of the statements may be misleading. For example, completely independent core technology. I flipped through a few pages. Every page was something Shen Qingtang had taken for financing, signing clients, and promotion. My name wasn't on it, only Duan Xinyan's name was listed as the person in charge of market deployment. In addition, Attorney Zhou said that some of Duan Xinyan's project expense reimbursements were very unusual. There was a financial advisor named Xian Yaoling on President Jin's side who was willing to provide clues. I looked up and asked what clues. He might have embezzled a lot of money under the guise of client entertainment and market promotion. There was also a 200,000 yuan loan that was transferred from your account and went into his personal investment account the next day. I laughed. He said his mother was hospitalized and urgently needed money. Shen Qingtang asked me to lend him the money. But he used it for investment. Once people wake up, they will find that all the so-called trust in the past was a loophole. When I arrived at the Lichuan headquarters, Jin Nanchuan personally came down to greet me. He was in his early 40s, wearing a dark gray suit, with a calm look in his eyes. I had long admired engineer He. I shook hands with him. President Jin, you should know that I signed the contract today not to help you fight Yao Ling. Of course. He said. We are buying the value of technology, not marital grievances. That sentence made me feel a little more favorably toward him. In the signing room, the legal and technical head and financial director of Lichuan were all there. Unlike Yao Ling, they didn't treat me as a readily available behind-the-scenes tool. They treated me as a rights holder. The contract pages turned. The transfer amount was 60 million. The first 10 million deposit had been paid. The second 30 million was for the patent, to be paid after the transfer registration was accepted. The third 20 million was to be paid after the ownership change was completed. Simultaneously, Lichuan hired me as a consultant for the Chengwan upgrade project, with additional fees per project. As I signed my name, my phone vibrated wildly. Shen Qingtang, Duan Xinyan, Yao Ling, the technical director, Yao Ling, the account manager, one after another. I silenced them all. After signing the last page, Jin Nanchuan handed me a pen. Pleasant cooperation. Mr. He. I grasped the pen and suddenly remembered 6 years ago, when Shen Qingtang registered his company for the first time. I was there with him signing the papers. That day, he excitedly hugged me and said, Jie, we will definitely get better and better. And we really have gotten better and better. Later, he replaced us with himself and Duan Xinyan. After the signing, I had just stepped out of the conference room when Shen Qingtang called again. This time I answered. His voice was strained. He Jie. Where are you? Lichuan. His breath hitched. You signed. I heard the sound of something breaking on the other end of the line. He almost gritted his teeth as he asked. Are you really going to drive me to my death? I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window at the Lichuan headquarters, looking at the traffic below. Shen Qingtang. What have you misunderstood? I'm not forcing you. I'm telling you. I'm just stopping the blood supply. There was a deathly silence on the other end of the line. At this moment, she finally began to understand. She hadn't just lost a tolerant husband. She had lost the most crucial and quietest foundation of the entire Yaoling. Before the patent transfer news was even made public, Yaoling was already in chaos. At 2 p.m., Guanren Hospital suspended the acceptance process. At 3 p.m., the third hospital sent a letter requesting Yaoling to submit complete ownership certificates for the Chengwang system. At 4 p.m., the legal department of Kanghua Group notified them that if Yaoling could not prove that it would have stable and legal supply for the next 5 years, the procurement contract will be re-evaluated. This information wasn't sent to me by Shen Qingtang, but by Lao Qiu, the technical director of Yaoling. Lao Qiu and I have known each other for many years. Back when Chengwang's first-generation model was running, he was just a hardware engineer. Later, Yaoling expanded. He stayed at the company as the technical director. He sent me a long message, "Hey engineer. I know the company has wronged you. I couldn't stand watching the annual meeting last night either. That Duan Xinian doesn't understand technology at all. Yet he always tries to steal credit. President Shen has been listening to him more and more these past 2 years. It's difficult for us subordinates." I replied, "Take care of yourself. Don't get involved." Lao Qiu quickly sent a compressed file. "These are the materials I kept. You might need them. Duan Xinian has claimed a lot of customer maintenance expenses these past 2 years. But he didn't even go to many of the sites. There were also several system failures that you repaired remotely. He took them and wrote them as his own customer support reports." I opened the compressed file. Inside were expense reports, business trip records, project daily reports, and several screenshots of internal chats. In one screenshot, Duan Xinian said in a small group, "It's easy to talk to engineer he. One word from his wife, and he'll get up in the middle of the night to fix it." Another colleague asked, "Won't he be unhappy if he's not credited?" Duan Xinian replied, "He's a tech guy. Just coax him a little. Besides, even President Shen has no objections. What can he do?" I looked at that sentence. And surprisingly, I didn't feel much of a stir in my heart. Maybe once a person is completely disappointed, they don't even bother to be angry. That night, I went back to the hospital. It was ICU visiting hours. I put on my protective suit and went in to see my dad. He hadn't woken up yet, but his vital signs were more stable than yesterday. I stood by the bed and whispered, "Dad, the surgery is over. We have enough money. Don't worry." The machine beeped. My dad's finger twitched slightly. It was so slight that my eyes suddenly welled up with tears. When I walked out of the ICU, I saw Shen Qingtang standing at the door. This time, she wasn't wearing high heels or heavy makeup. She looked tired and disheveled. "How is Dad?" she asked me. "It's none of your business." Her face paled. "Jie, do you have to talk like that? I'm just following your standards." I looked at him. "You said I'd handle my dad's affairs myself." His eyes reddened. "That was just said in anger." "Said in anger?" I laughed. "That 5 million at the annual meeting was also money spent in anger." He bit his lip. Xin Yan's dividends have already been paid out. Company procedures can't be easily reversed. So my dad's surgery fees can be ignored. But Duan Xinyan's 5 million can't be withdrawn. He was speechless. At this moment, footsteps came from the other end of the corridor. Duan Xinyan had also arrived. He was holding a bouquet of flowers. His expression was sincere, as if he had really come to visit. "Brother I've come to see uncle. What I said yesterday was wrong. I apologize to you." Shen Qingtang saw him and frowned slightly. "Why are you here?" Duan Xinian smiled bitterly. "So many things have happened at the company. I was afraid you couldn't handle it." This sentence was ambiguous yet considerate. Several nurses nearby couldn't help but look over. I leaned against the wall watching him act. Duan Xinian walked up to me and lowered his voice. "Brother let's talk." I didn't refuse. In the hospital stairwell, he finally shed his docile facade. "Jie, that's enough." I saw that he had stopped pretending. He sneered that President Shen was only angry with you now. Once the company crisis is over, he will still choose someone like me who can stand in the spotlight for him. You think you've won by selling a patent? Technology can be bought again. Clients can be negotiated again. Marriages can be repaired. I asked. Then why are you in such a hurry? His face stiffened. I continued. Are you afraid of not securing the 5 million? Or are you afraid of being caught for falsifying those accounts? Duan Xinyan's eyes instantly changed. What nonsense are you talking about? I took out my phone and opened a reimbursement form. Last October. Guanren Hospital customer maintenance fee 120,000. Reimbursement applicant, Duan Xinyan. But that day, Guanren had an on-site malfunction. I handled it remotely in the early morning. You were in Yinqing accompanying Shen Qingtang to a cocktail party. I scrolled to the next form. This March. Third hospital project travel expenses 86,000. 5 days of accommodation and entertainment expenses have been reimbursed. But the director of the third hospital was attending a meeting abroad that week. Duan Xinyan's face grew increasingly grim. I looked at him. And the 200,000 I lent you. You said your mother was hospitalized. The next day. The money went into your investment account. His eyes darkened. You investigated me. When you stepped on my father. You should have thought I would investigate. He suddenly laughed. His voice low. So what if you have evidence? President Shen trusts me. As long as he's on my side. Everyone will just think you're retaliating because you didn't get any money in the divorce. I nodded. So you've already prepared the press release. He was clearly taken aback. I continued. Is the headline "Former Technician Maliciously Extorts Yaoling Due to Family Conflict"? His expression finally cracked. I smiled at Duan Xinyan. You're really unoriginal. Actually. This isn't my guess. Old Chiu sent me a draft from the marketing department. It already outlined how to portray me as an unstable, emotional man who used his father's illness to demand huge sums of money from the company. The copy even mentioned that he had long relied on President Shen's financial support, made unreasonable demands on the company due to personal family changes, and maliciously interrupted services after being refused. He was a long-term dependent. When I finished reading that part, I almost burst out laughing. That's Duan Xinyan's brilliance. He never directly stabs the knife. He first hands the knife to Shen Qingtang, then makes him think it's for the company's good. Seeing my silence, Duan Xinyan assumed I was scared. He stepped forward, his voice threatening. He Jie. It's not too late to back down now. Your father is still in the hospital. Right. How much does it cost a day in the ICU? Do you really think 60 million will come in right away? Don't let the patent be gone. The divorce ruined. And your father unable to afford the consequences. As soon as he finished speaking, I opened the recording interface. The red dot was flashing. Duan Xinyan's face turned completely pale. I put away my phone. Thank you. Another piece of evidence. He reached out to grab it. I dodged to the side. The stairwell door was pushed open at that moment. Shen Qingtang stood in the doorway. His face grim. He had clearly heard the last few sentences. Duan Xinyan instantly put on a wronged expression. President Shen. I just wanted to advise brother he not to act impulsively. He's been threatening me with the recording. Shen Qingtang looked at me. In the past, he would have questioned me first about why I pressured Duan Xinyan. But this time, he didn't speak immediately. Perhaps the company crisis made him hesitate. Perhaps the coldness in my eyes made him hesitate. I dared not be as certain as before. I forwarded him the screenshots Lao Chiu had sent. Your most trusted partner. Look for yourself. Shen Qingtang looked down at his phone. 1, 2, 3 screenshots. His face went from pale to ashen. Duan Xinyan panicked. President Shen. These things can be forged. Brother, he is trying to break us up and the company. Him. Us. I interrupted him. You finally admitted it. Shen Qingtang looked up at him sharply. Duan Xinyan realized he had let something slip. The stairwell was quiet except for the sound of breathing. I pushed open the door to leave. Shen Qingtang suddenly called out to me. Jie. I stopped. His voice was low. Give me the complete information. I will investigate. I looked back at him. Shen Qingtang. You won't just investigate. You have no choice but to investigate. His shoulders trembled slightly. I continued. But that doesn't mean you're innocent. Duan Xinyan was able to climb to the top by stepping on me because you gave him a way out. After saying that, I walked out of the stairwell. I heard Duan Xinyan's flustered explanation behind me. Shen Qingtang didn't chase after me. I knew he was truly panicked for the first time. Not because he felt sorry for me, but because he finally realized that the person he had promoted might be a conman who would turn on him. And the husband she left in the hospital corridor was the one who had been covering her tracks all along. I originally thought Shin Qingtang would deal with Duan Xinian first. Unexpectedly, the next morning, it was her mother, Shin's mother, who came to the hospital. She was wearing a dark green suit, carrying a designer bag, followed by Shin Qingtang's younger brother, Shin Zhuo, and two other relatives who only appeared during holidays. As soon as they entered the hospital corridor, they adopted a confrontational stance. Shin's mother frowned when she saw me. "Jie, you've been too insensible this time." I was sitting on a bench, looking at my father's medical report from today. Hearing this, I didn't even look up. Seeing that I ignored her, Shin's mother raised her voice. "We sympathize with your father's illness. But you can't ruin Qingtang's company for 800,000 yuan. It's not easy for her as a woman to get to where she is today. It's one thing for you, as her husband, not to help her." They were stabbing him in the back. Many patients' families in the corridor looked over. Shen Zhuo also spoke up. "Brother-in-law, I'm not saying this to be mean. But you, as a man, should have a bigger picture. Your father isn't young anymore. So much money spent on surgery. And who knows what will happen afterward. But if my sister's company collapses, it will affect hundreds of employees." I finally raised my head. "So you think my father shouldn't have been saved?" Shen Zhuo's eyes flashed. "That's not what I meant. I meant we need to weigh things." Shen's mother immediately chimed in. "Yes. We need to weigh things. You can't push Qingtang to the brink for an old man. Besides, your husband and wife. Isn't your patent hers? Selling it to a rival company. Isn't that betraying your own family?" I looked at her. Suddenly, I felt this family was really alike. They always stood on the side of profit, then packaged their selfishness as a grander cause. I asked Shin's mother, "Do you know how much my father's surgery cost?" She said impatiently, "It's just 800,000. Do you know how much Shin Qingtang paid Duan Xinian?" His face stiffened. People around whispered among themselves. 5 million. I think. I saw the video last night. It was about that male secretary. His husband's father was critically ill. He gave the secretary 5 million. When Shin's mother heard the discussion, her face turned pale, but she still held her ground. "That was a company bonus. It can't be mixed up." I nodded. "Then we'll calculate it item by item." I took out a stack of printed bank statements from the file bag. When Shen Zhuo saw those papers, his expression suddenly became a little unnatural. I handed the first one to Shin's mother. In 2020, the Shin family suppliers owed 1.1 million. You said if they didn't pay, Uncle Shin would be sued. Shin Qingtang asked me to transfer money, and I made a profit. Chapter 2, 2021. Shin Zhuo bought a house. He was 800,000 short of the down payment. You said it's not easy for young people to get married. You asked me, his brother-in-law, to help out, and I made a profit. Chapter 3, 2022. Shin Zhuo bought a car. The loan couldn't be approved. I acted as guarantor. Later. You were late 3 times. I paid your monthly payments. Chapter 4, 2023. Shin's mother planned to have a medical checkup and be hospitalized. Qingtang said he was busy. He made me stay with him for 4 days. The caregiver fee, special ward fee, and imported medicine totaled 128,000. I read out each bill as I paid. The murmurs in the corridor grew louder. Shin's mother couldn't bear it anymore. She reached out to grab it. "Jie, what do you mean by taking these out? It's just a small favor between family members. Why are you keeping track of the expenses?" I dodged his hand. "I didn't keep track before because I considered you family." I looked up at him. "But when my father was critically ill, your daughter said he shouldn't have dragged our family down. From that moment on, we were no longer family." Shin's mother's face flushed red. Shin Zhuo was anxious. "Brother-in-law, can't you stop embarrassing yourself in public?" I looked at him coldly. "I'm the one who's embarrassing myself. The one who owes money and doesn't pay it back." He choked. I took out a lawyer's letter from the file folder. "Shin Zhuo, you owe me 800,000 for the down payment. 6 or 7 months worth of car loan payments. And your mother's 128,000. I have already hired a lawyer to recover these. No negotiation within 3 days. I will sue. Shenjua's face turned pale instantly. Are you crazy? I am Qin Tang's younger brother. I am the creditor. Someone around couldn't help but whisper. This family is too outrageous. Taking other people's money is a given. They won't give money when their father-in-law is critically ill. But they readily lend money to her family. Shen's mother trembled with anger. He Jie. You are too heartless. Qin Tang has been married to you for 6 years. And this is how you treat her family. I stood up. She has been married to me for 6 years. I have paid off your debts. I have lent you money. I have written systems for her company. I have cleaned up her secretary's messes. Now my father is in the ICU. You brought people to the hospital to accuse me of being heartless. I pointed towards the ICU. If you have any conscience at all, you shouldn't be shouting here. Shen's mother's lips trembled. She wanted to say something more. At this moment, Shen Qin Tang arrived. He walked quickly to the corridor. Seeing the water-stained photocopies scattered all over the floor, his face immediately turned ugly. Mom, what are you doing here? Shen's mother immediately became aggrieved. Look at him. He's going to sue your brother. He even publicly humiliated our Shen family at the hospital. Shen Zhuo also said. Sister. He's deliberately trying to embarrass us. Shen Qintang looked at me. Her voice weary. Jie put the things away first. I asked why. He pursed his lips. This is a hospital. Last night, when your mother was scolding me, this wasn't a hospital. I cornered her. I handed her the lawyer's letter. You've come at the right time. Do you acknowledge these debts? Shen Qintang glanced down. Her expression complex. Of course I acknowledge them. He knows every single transfer. He even personally asked me to transfer many of them. But he never thought I would bring them up for reckoning. Because I was too easygoing in the past. So easygoing that he forgot that money is money and favors are favors. Marriage isn't a blood-sucking license. Seeing Shen Qintang's silence, Shen's mother became anxious. Say something. Didn't he give this money voluntarily? There's no reason for a family to repay debts. I laughed. What a family. I took out my phone and played Shen Qintang's voice message from last night. His voice came clearly from the phone. Your father's illness shouldn't bankrupt our family. The corridor fell silent instantly. Shen's mother's face changed. Shen Zhuo also lowered his head. Shen Qintang froze on the spot. I turned off the recording and looked at him. Since my father isn't part of this family, then Shen Zhuo isn't my family either. Since I have to figure out how to pay my father's 800,000 yuan myself, then your brother's 800,000 yuan should be paid back by himself. In the crowd, an aunt couldn't help but say, the young man is right. How can it be that the in-laws giving money is a sign of kinship, but the father-in-law saving a life is a burden? This woman looks quite respectable. Why is she so cold? I've seen that news about the male secretary getting 5 million yuan. TSK. Shen Qintang's face turned pale inch by inch. This was the first time he had lost his dignity in a real-life situation. Not at the company. Not on stage. But in the hospital corridor. At the entrance to my father's ICU. The truth was torn apart by the very family gossip he once despised. He whispered. Jie. I'm sorry. I looked at him. His expression remained unchanged. You should say that to my father. His eyes reddened. I can go see Dad. I don't need to refuse him directly. He needs rest. He doesn't need stimulation. Mother Shen said angrily. He Jie. Don't go too far. Qin Tang is willing to lower her head. She's already giving you face. I turned to look at him. I picked up the spilled water from the ground and put it back into the file bag one by one. Mrs. Shen. The face of your Shen family was something I built up with tolerance and forbearance 6 years ago. From today onwards, I won't hold on anymore. After saying that, I turned and walked towards the nurse's station to process the follow-up special care procedures for my father. Mother Shen wanted to chase after me, but Shen Qintang stopped her. I heard Shen Qintang's voice trembling with suppressed emotion. Mom, don't say any more. Mother Shen was unwilling. You just let her bully us like this. Shen Qintang didn't answer. Because he knew I wasn't bullying them. I was just laying out what they owed me. One by one. In the sunlight, and what they couldn't bear to see the light of day. Lichuan Medical officially released the announcement 3 days later. That morning, my dad finally woke up. He opened his eyes and saw me sitting by the hospital bed. His lips moved slightly. I leaned closer and heard him softly ask, "Where's Qing Tang?" My heart sank. I didn't answer immediately. My dad looked at me. His eyes still weak. But he seemed to understand everything. I held his hand. "Dad, you should take care of yourself first." He sighed. "In this life, there are some hardships I can endure. And some I can't. I'm old and can't help you much anymore. But don't sacrifice your whole life for me." My eyes welled up. "Not for you." I said I don't want to sacrifice any more myself. My dad looked at me and slowly nodded. "That's good." After leaving the ward, I received a call from Jean Nanchuan. He gong. "The announcement will be released in 10 minutes. Are you sure there are no problems?" I said. "Let's release it." 10 minutes later, Lichuan Medical's official account released a message. Lichuan Medical has completed the acquisition of Chengwang's core patents and will launch a new generation of intraoperative intelligent monitoring platform. The announcement didn't mention Yaoling or Shen Qintang. It simply stated that the ownership of Chengwang's 3 core patents had been transferred from the original inventor, He Jie, to Lichuan Medical. The medical industry circle isn't large. Less than half an hour after the announcement, my phone was ringing off the hook. Old clients, former colleagues, hospital directors, investment institution friends, everyone was asking the same question. "Mr. He, didn't Yaoling say that Chengwang had completely independent intellectual property rights? What about the system they're currently using? You and President Shen are husband and wife. How did things come to this?" My unified response: "Please refer to the publicly available ownership documents and lawyer's letter for contractual issues." At 2 p.m., Shen Qintang rushed to Lichuan Medical. He obviously hadn't made an appointment and was stopped downstairs by the receptionist. Finally, Jean Nanchuan had someone take him to the meeting room. When I arrived, he was standing by the window, pale-faced, his eyes bloodshot. Duan Xinian was also there. But this time he was clearly not as composed as he had been a few days ago. He stood behind Shen Qintang, holding a folder, his eyes darting around. Shen Qintang saw me and got straight to the point: "Withdraw the announcement." "Why should I sit down? This will put Yaoling in a public relations crisis." "Is the announcement true?" He gritted his teeth. "Just because it's true doesn't mean you can do this." Jean Nanchuan sat to the side. He spoke calmly. "President Shen, Lichuan legally acquired the patent. Issuing an announcement is normal business behavior." Shen Qintang looked at him. "President Jean, you took advantage of your marital conflict to steal core technology. Don't you think that's undignified?" Jean Nanchuan smiled. "President Shen, the most undignified thing in business is taking someone else's intellectual property and claiming it's completely independent." Shen Qintang's expression changed. Duan Xinian immediately interjected. "President Jean, there's a misunderstanding here. Although the Chengwang system's patent is under He Ji's name, Yaoling has long invested market resources in it. It can't be said that it's unrelated to Yaoling." I looked at him. "Market resources? You mean your falsely reported client entertainment expenses?" Duan Xinian's face stiffened. Shen Qintang frowned. "Now is not the time to talk about this." "Then when will we talk about it?" "I'll ask when you've thrown all the mud at me." I pushed a licensing agreement to the center of the table. Shen Qintang, look closely. 5 years ago, Yaoling obtained a non-exclusive license. The license price was 100,000 yuan a year. That price isn't even enough for an average algorithm engineer's annual salary. His lips moved. I continued. "Why so low?" "Because back then you said the company was struggling and asked me to help you. You said we were husband and wife. No need to be so calculating." I then produced several maintenance records. In these 5 years, Qingguangda has iterated 17 times. 13 of which I completed independently. There were 26 major on-site customer failures. And I handled 22 of them. In your company's public announcements, I haven't been credited once. Shen Qingtang's eyes trembled. I didn't let him continue. "I'm not here to hear you call my name. I only want to confirm 3 things today." I raised my first finger. First, the patent has been sold and cannot be withdrawn. Second, Yaoling cannot continue using the core module after the license expires. Third, I've sent you the divorce agreement. If you don't sign it within 7 days, we'll see each other in court. Shen Qingtang leaned on the edge of the table, as if he were about to lose his footing. Duan Xinian suddenly said to Brother He, "Aren't you afraid people will say you're blackmailing President Shen with your marriage by going to such extremes?" I turned to look at him. "You finished your PR statement." His expression changed slightly. I turned on the projector. A screenshot of a document appeared on the screen. The title was, "Former Technical Consultant Maliciously Extorts Yaoling Medical Due to Family Conflicts. The company will protect its rights according to law." Duan Xinian's name appeared in the edit history. The meeting room fell silent instantly. Shen Jingtang looked sharply at Duan Xinian. "You wrote this?" Duan Xinian's face paled. "President Shen. This is a contingency plan from the marketing department. It's not my personal opinion. We need to guard against public opinion risks." "Public opinion risks," I said. "Let's preemptively throw mud." Jin Nanchuan's legal manager spoke up. "If President Shen Yaoling publishes similar false content, we will represent Mr. He and Lichuan to file lawsuits simultaneously, including but not limited to defamation, commercial defamation, and false advertising." Shen Jingtang's face grew increasingly grim. He finally realized that Duan Xinian's so-called mature plan was not helping him resolve the crisis. Instead, it pushed him into an even bigger pit. He took a deep breath and turned to me. "We can talk about the patent. I can have Yaoling buy it back in installments for 60 million. I looked at him. "You can't afford it." His eyes widened. I wasn't trying to humiliate him. It's the truth. Yaoling's cash flow looks good on paper. But a lot of funds are tied up in channels, prototypes, and projects with outstanding payments. If the 3 major clients, Guanren Third Hospital and Kanghua, stop working, subsequent financing will be immediately affected. The 5 million he gave Duan Xinian wasn't just money. It was the last stone that broke the trust. Shen Qingtang obviously thought of this too. His voice lowered. "Then what do you want in return for giving Yaoling a way out?" I said I had given it. He was stunned. 6 years ago, I licensed it to you at a low price. That was a way out. These past 5 years, I've maintained it for free. That was a way out. When the Guanren system crashed for the first time, I helped you recover. That was a way out. When Duan Xinian stole my credit, I didn't expose him. That was also a way out. I looked at him and said, word by word, "Yesterday, my dad was in critical condition. When you told me to figure it out myself, all hope was lost." Shen Qingtang's eyes were red and swollen. Duan Xinian suddenly became anxious. "President Shen, don't beg him. We have a backup plan. The technical team can bypass the patent and redevelop the module." Jin Nanchuan glanced at him, as if watching a joke. "Assistant Duan, medical algorithms can't be bypassed just by changing the skin. Your so-called backup plan, has it undergone clinical trials? Has it been approved ethically? Has it had a data loop? Or are you planning to use patient safety to pay for your stubbornness?" Duan Xinian's face turned pale and then red. I stood up. I had said what I needed to say. Shen Qingtang suddenly grabbed my wrist. "Jie, don't go." This was the first time he had grabbed me in front of someone else. But I felt no emotion. I looked down at his hand and said, "Let go." Tears fell from his eyes. "Let's go home and talk." "Okay." I pulled my hand away. I looked at him and suddenly smiled. "Shen Qingtang, when my dad was in the ICU, you said his illness shouldn't have ruined our family. From that sentence on, we have no home anymore." As I walked out of the meeting room, I heard her suppressed sobs behind me. Before, when she cried, I would feel sorry for her. Now, I only felt that she was finally paying a little interest for herself. The real debt was yet to come. The collapse of Yaoling Medical was faster than Shen Qingtang had imagined. The day after the Lichuan announcement, the third day after Kanghua Group suspended procurement, Guanren Hospital announced a retender. On the fourth day, the third hospital sent a letter demanding that Yaoling explain whether there were any ownership defects in the Qingguang system. These were all public actions. What was more fatal was the collapse of trust in private. What are medical industry clients most afraid of? It's not high prices, nor slow delivery. It's the lack of transparency and risk. Yaoling had always written about its completely independent core technology in its promotional materials and bidding documents. Now that the patent ownership was exposed, the first thought of the clients was not to pity Shen Qintang, but whether they had been misled. On the afternoon of the fifth day, Yaoling had originally arranged a client communication meeting. Shen Qintang wanted to use this meeting to stabilize the clients. He sent me a message, 7 p.m. tonight. Yaoling headquarters. I hope you can come. Not for me. For the hospitals that have already used the equipment. He's smart. He knows that if he asks me directly, I won't go. So he changed it to the responsibility of the patients and hospitals. If it were before, I would have been taken in by those words. But now I only reply that I will go. But not to support you. At 7 p.m. I arrived at Yaoling's headquarters. This is the place I used to know best. On the honor wall in the lobby, there is still a photo of Yaoling when it received its first investment. In the photo, Shen Qintang stands in the middle, smiling triumphantly. I stand on the far side. Only half of my face is visible. At that time, I didn't mind. I thought that if he stood in the light, it meant we were all standing in the light. Now I realize that the half of my face that was cut off is my place in his life. The conference room was full of client representatives. Director Li from Guangren Hospital. Section Chief Zhou from the Equipment Department of the 3rd Hospital. Purchasing Director of Kenghua Group. And several long-term cooperative channel partners. Shen Qintang sat in the main seat. Duan Xinian sat to his right. He was dressed very formally today. Still trying to maintain a dignified appearance. When I entered, everyone looked at me. Shen Qintang stood up. Her voice a little hoarse. Jie. You're here. I didn't respond to her. Only nodding to the clients. Good evening. Everyone. Director Li went straight to Engineer He. We're here today to hear the truth. Is the Qinguang system that Yaoling is currently using still operating legally and stably? Shen Qintang immediately said. Director Li. Yaoling has a complete after-sales obligation for the existing equipment. We will protect the rights and interests of our clients. Section Chief Zhou frowned. President Shen. We're asking about ownership and technology. Not public relations rhetoric. Duan Xinian chimed in. Don't worry. Everyone. Although the Qinguang system involves Engineer He's early patents, Yaoling has invested heavily in research and development over the years and has formed its own complete product system. Engineer He's personal actions will not affect the overall delivery. I glanced at Duan Xinian. Do you have any evidence for what you're saying? His face stiffened. Shen Qintang whispered. Jie. Don't make things too ugly today. I laughed. You invited me here to hear the truth. He pursed his lips. I placed the folder on the table. The first document was the patent ownership certificate. The second was the non-exclusive licensing agreement for Yaoling. The third was my personal maintenance record for the past 5 years. The fourth was Yaoling's external publicity materials, including screenshots of the materials claiming complete independent intellectual property rights. I projected each document onto the screen. The meeting room grew increasingly quiet. After reviewing them, Director Li's face darkened. When you submitted your bid, Mr. Shen, the materials stated that Yaoling possessed completely independent core technology. Now it seems that this statement was at least inaccurate. Section Chief Zhou also coldly remarked that it was inaccurate. This had already affected the procurement decision. Kenghua's procurement director flipped through the documents and directly asked Shen Qintang. Your license expires next month. If Engineer He doesn't renew it, can you continue to supply goods? Shen Qintang's face turned pale. He looked at me. His eyes pleading. I looked away. Duan Xinian forced a smile and said. We can solve this through technological iteration. Director Li immediately sneered at Assistant Duan. Do you know how long the clinical validation cycle for medical equipment is? You're talking about technological iteration. Our hospital is using patients to test and learn. Duan Xinian, with his back turned, remained silent. I spoke calmly. The version currently used by Yaoling is running within the license period and does not constitute infringement. However, after the license expires, if you continue to use the core modules, a new license will be required. As for subsequent maintenance, I will no longer provide services to Yaoling in my personal capacity. Kenghua's purchasing director immediately said. Then we will suspend subsequent procurement. Section Chief Zhou from the 3rd hospital also nodded. We need to reassess the risks. Shen Qingtang's face finally turned completely pale. His voice trembled. The Yaoling team is willing to take responsibility and is also willing to supplement the agreement. Director Li looked at him. President Shen. We trusted Yaoling before largely because of engineer He's technical reputation. Now you haven't even handled the core ownership properly. And you've allowed someone who doesn't understand technology to say that you can bypass the patent. It's hard for us to continue to trust you with this attitude. These words were like a slap in the face, hitting Shen Qingtang hard. Duan Xinian couldn't help but say, Director Li, you can't negate the entire Yaoling team because of engineer He's personal emotions. Director Li looked at him coldly. I'm negating false promises. Just then, the conference room door was pushed open. Yaoling CFO, Su Man, walked in. She was carrying a stack of documents. Her face grim. President Shen. I have something I must report now. Shen Qingtang frowned and went out to wait. Su Man didn't move. She glanced at Duan Xinian. The preliminary investigation of Assistant Duan's clients from last year to this year, entertainment expenses, travel expenses, and special consulting fees, reached over 1.7 million yuan. This couldn't be matched with actual business transactions. Several of these involved clients present today. The meeting room instantly erupted. Director Li's face turned ashen. What do you mean by involving our clients? Su Man placed the documents on the table. For example, the Guanren Hospital project. Assistant Duan reimbursed 120,000 yuan for client entertainment expenses, with the note saying it was received by Director Li's team. But according to the travel records, that assistant director wasn't even in the city. All eyes turned to Duan Xinian. Duan Xinian's face was deathly pale. Su Man. Don't talk nonsense. These procedures were all approved. Su Man said coldly. The procedures were approved by President Shen. Shen Qingtang suddenly looked at Duan Xinian and demanded an explanation. Duan Xinian's forehead was sweating. Mr. Shen. There must be some misunderstanding here. Many expenses were prepaid by the market. I can provide supplementary materials later regarding the specific uses. Konghua's purchasing director sneered. Using our clients' names to submit false accounts. Section Chief Zhou stood up abruptly. Mr. Shen. There's no need to continue this meeting today. The 3rd hospital is suspending all cooperation and reserving the right to pursue accountability. Director Li also stood up. Guang Ren did the same. Clients left one after another. Shen Qingtang stood there. His face ashen. The rhetoric he had prepared all night crumbled completely in the face of the facts. I packed up my documents and prepared to leave as well. He suddenly chased after me and called out to me at the meeting room door. I stopped. His voice was filled with an unprecedented panic. You knew Su Man would come all along. I looked at him. I just gave the information to the right people. As for when he said it, that was his choice. His eyes were red. Do you really have to ruin Yaoling to this extent? I said. Shen Qingtang. It wasn't me who destroyed Yaoling's trust. I looked at Duan Xinian. It was the person you chose to believe. Duan Xinian stood disheveled in the conference room. His lips trembling. Gone was the smugness he had at the year-end party. Shen Qingtang followed my gaze. His expression was complex at that moment, shock, anger, regret, and a realization I no longer needed. I stepped into the elevator. Just as the doors were closing, he rushed over. His voice broken. Jie. I really didn't know he would do this. The elevator doors slowly closed. I glanced at him one last time. But you know my dad is waiting for the surgery fees. The doors closed, shutting out her cries. I knew that after this public humiliation, Yaoling could never go back to the way things were. And Shen Qingtang finally understood. Some trust, once given away, will never return. After the client meeting, Shen Qingtang started calling me frantically. 27 calls the first day, 43 the second, 76 the third. I only answered one. That night, I had just returned to my rented apartment from the hospital. I no longer lived in the marital home. That apartment was the down payment I made before the marriage. We jointly repaid the mortgage after marriage. But I paid most of the monthly payments. Shen Qingtang always said he was busy. household utilities, property management fees, mortgage, car loan, gifts for both sets of parents on Father's Day and Mother's Day. I handled almost everything. Now I've stopped all automatic payments and handed it over to the lawyer for liquidation. When the call connected, Shen Qingtang's voice was hoarse. He Jie asked, "What exactly do you want from me?" I hung up my coat, opened a bottle of mineral water, and signed the divorce papers. His breath hitched. "Besides this, there's nothing else." His voice suddenly rose. "Do you know that Kang Yue has already sent a breach of contract letter? Guanren is demanding compensation. The third hospital has suspended cooperation. The financing party also wants to conduct due diligence again. You sold the patent. And the client breached the contract. Now the entire Yaoling is under immense pressure." I sat on the sofa. The apartment was small. Only one bedroom and one living room. But very quiet. There was no sound of Shen Qingtang calling me in the middle of the night to revise the plan. Nor his orders to send medicine because Duan Xinian said he wasn't feeling well. I said these were all business consequences. He almost collapsed. "Business consequences. He Jie. We're husband and wife. You show absolutely no mercy." Finally. Here it comes. That line from the title. I listened to his trembling question. There was no satisfaction in my heart. Only coldness. No mercy whatsoever. I repeated. He seemed to grasp something. He urgently said, "Yes. Mercy. We've been husband and wife for 6 years. You can't be so heartless. What happened with Dad was my fault. I can apologize. I can compensate. I can give you whatever amount you want. Tell Jean Nanchuan not to push forward with the subsequent transfer. Give Yaolin a buffer period." "Okay." I asked. "How much money do you have now?" He was silent. So I answered for him. "Cash on hand is tied up in projects. Financing is suspended. Client payments are uncertain. Duan Xinian has a pile of bad debts. Shen Qingtang. You're not willing to give money now. You can't give it anymore." His voice trembled. "Do you have to humiliate me like this? I'm just stating the facts. Then what do you want me to do?" He choked up. "The company is my life." I was silent for 2 seconds. "My father is my life too." Silence on the other end of the phone. I continued. "How did you treat me back then?" He didn't speak. I said, "Let me figure it out myself." After I said that, a suppressed sob came from the other end of the phone. "Jie. I regret it." She cried very softly. As if afraid of being heard. I was really too busy that night. Annual meeting. Financing clients. Everyone was waiting for me. I didn't neglect Dad. Rapid breathing came from the other end of the phone. "You lied to me." He seemed unable to accept those words. "We've been together for 6 years. How could you just stop loving me like that? You used to care about me so much. You would wait for me when I came home late. You would cook porridge when I had a stomachache. You stayed up all night with me when my project failed. Jie. You're not this kind of person." I listened to him recount the past and suddenly felt ironic. So he remembered everything. He remembered how good I was to him. But he took it all for granted when he was enjoying it. People don't change suddenly. I said it was a series of times when my heart grew cold until it finally stopped warming. He cried and said, "Then give me a chance. I can change. Si Nian. I've already suspended him. The finance department is investigating him. I will also go to the hospital to apologize to Dad. Let's start over." "Okay." I didn't answer. Because I know his so-called change is just a rescue attempt after loss. Not true respect. Just then, another call came in. It was Attorney Zhou. I told Shen Qingtang. The lawyer hung up. He hurriedly called Jie. "Don't hang up. I haven't finished." I hung up on him and connected with Attorney Zhou. "Mr. He. Duan Xinian. Might be running away." My eyes turned cold. How do I put it? This afternoon. He transferred 360,000 yuan from the project linked to Yaoling's account. The recipient is a shell company. He also booked a flight to Singapore tomorrow morning. I stood up. Is the evidence sufficient for the police report? Preliminary evidence is enough for Su Man to cooperate. The company's internal procedures also prove he has committed fraudulent reimbursement and embezzlement. Then call the police. After hanging up, I looked out the window. The city was shrouded in darkness. Duan Sinian finally revealed his true nature. He wasn't a loyal secretary. Nor a gentle partner. He was just someone who leeched off Shen Qintang. And Shen Qintang was only after her emotional value. He pushed away the person who truly stood by him through thick and thin. The next morning, Duan Sinian failed to board the plane. He was taken away by the police at the airport for questioning. When the news reached Yaoling, Shen Qintang was holding a financing remediation meeting. According to Lao Chiu, he almost collapsed on the spot and had to hold onto the conference table to keep from falling. At noon, he sent me a photo. The photo showed Duan Sinian's empty workstation. He texted, "I was wrong. I was really wrong. Go home." I looked at those 3 sentences but didn't reply. 10 minutes later, he texted again. "I'm back in the bridal chamber. Your slippers are still there." I looked down at the shoes on my feet. I bought those slippers last winter. Shen Qintang thought the gray color was ugly. But I liked them then because they were comfortable. Later, when Duan Sinian came to my house to deliver documents, he casually remarked that the slippers didn't seem to match the decoration of President Shen's house. The next day, those slippers were put away in the closet by Shen Qintang. Now he says my slippers are still there. But I don't need them anymore. I replied to him, "Please do not enter the premarital property without permission. Your lawyer will contact you to move out." He replied with a single word much later. "Okay," followed by a period. It was as if he finally realized that I was no longer the person he would cry to and then turn back to. Shen Qintang didn't sign the divorce agreement within 7 days. I wasn't surprised. The more out of control he is, the more he wants to seize the last bit of initiative. On the 8th day, I submitted the divorce papers to the court. On the 9th day, he suddenly messaged me saying he was willing to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to talk. I knew he wasn't really going to complete the formalities. But I went anyway. Because some things need to be said face to face. There were quite a few people at the Civil Affairs Bureau. There were young couples smiling as they came to get their marriage certificates. And there were also couples silently queuing for divorce. When I arrived, Shen Qintang was already waiting at the door. He was wearing a beige coat. His hair down. He looked much gentler than usual. This was his most common style during his university years. He knew I used to like him like this. Unfortunately, once you see through someone, even the most familiar old image can't stir your heart. When he saw me, his eyes immediately reddened. "Yeah," I nodded. "Did you bring the agreement?" He said softly, looking down. "Let's walk around first." I glanced at the time. 10 minutes had passed. He gave a bitter smile. "Do you even time me now? The lawyer has a meeting at 11. A flicker of pain crossed his eyes. We walked along the path next to the Civil Affairs Bureau. He was silent for a long time before speaking. "I went back to our bridal chamber last night. I didn't say anything. There's the scarf you bought me in the closet. There are still the sticky notes you left in the kitchen. On the refrigerator, there's a sticky note that says, 'Don't drink coffee on an empty stomach. It's bad for your stomach.'" His voice grew increasingly choked. "How come I never noticed before? You left me so many things." I said calmly. "Because you never needed to notice." He paused. I continued walking. He caught up. Tears streamed down his face. "Jie. I know I'm a bastard. I really know now. Duan Sinian's matter. I misjudged people. Dad's matter. I was too cold-blooded. I've been thinking these past few days. If it were Mom lying in the hospital that day, and you told me she shouldn't have dragged this family down, how would I have acted?" She covered her mouth, crying, unable to continue. "I would hate you." She finally said those words. "So I know you hate me." I looked at the fallen leaves by the roadside. Did I not deny the hatred? At first, I hated him. I hated his indifference. I hated his favoritism. I hated that he put my father's life after Duan Sinian's 5 million. But later, the hatred slowly faded. Because hatred means there's still care. Now I just want it to end. He grabbed my sleeve. "Just like that day in Lichuan. I'll get back Duan Sinian's 5 million. I'll give it all to Dad's rehabilitation. I'll publicly apologize. To you. To Dad. To all our clients. I'll give you half of Yaoling's shares. We won't divorce. Okay." I looked down at him. "Shen Qintang. You still don't understand. He stared at me blankly. I said, "It's not that I think you're giving too little." His lips trembled. "Then what are you complaining about?" "I'm complaining that you don't care about me." These words came out calmer than I expected. He seemed to have been hit hard. Tears welled up in his eyes. I continued. "You're willing to give shares now. Willing to give money. Willing to publicly apologize. Because you've lost your clients. Your patent company's reputation and Duan Sinian. But that night, before my dad went into the operating room, you had money and choices. You had leeway. Yet you chose Duan Sinian. You chose the company annual meeting. You chose to let me figure it out myself." He slowly loosened his grip on my sleeve. Just then, a car pulled up to the side of the road. Shen's mother and Shenjue got out. I wasn't surprised at all. Shen Qingtang's face changed. "Mom, why are you here?" Shen's mother started crying as soon as she saw me. "Jie. Mom knows she was wrong. Please don't divorce Qingtang. Okay. Couples shouldn't hold grudges overnight. Qingtang hasn't been able to eat or sleep these past few days. She's lost weight. Your dad is fine now. Isn't he? Why does the family have to make such a fuss?" I looked at her. "My dad is fine. It was the doctors who saved him. It wasn't because you had a change of heart." Shen's mother's face stiffened. Shenjue was also much more low-key than before. He walked up to me and awkwardly said, "Brother-in-law. I'll pay back the money. Please don't sue me. Okay. My house was just renovated. The car can't be seized. My wife doesn't know about these things yet. Did you think about paying me back when I borrowed the money from you?" He lowered his head. Shen's mother was anxious. "We're all family. Don't be so aggressive." It was that same phrase again. I took out my phone and opened a video. It was an authorized video from hospital corridor surveillance footage. The clip was spliced together with my phone's recording. In the video, Shen's mother clearly said, "Your father isn't young anymore. We spent so much money on surgery. Who knows what will happen afterward?" The next clip was Shen Qingtang saying, "Your father's illness shouldn't bankrupt our family." The next clip was Duan Xinyan's voice, "Not everyone deserves Mr. Shen's 5 million to save them." I didn't show it to them privately. I projected it directly onto the advertising screen next to the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. This was evidence presentation arranged in advance by Attorney Zhou. For confirmation before mediation. People around stopped in their tracks. Shen's mother's face turned pale. "What are you doing? Turn it off. I'm watching her. Aren't we supposed to be family? Then let everyone see how you treat your family." More and more people gathered. Someone recognized Shen Qingtang. "Isn't that Mr. Shen from Yaolin Medical? My God. The male secretary got 5 million. Her husband and father are hospitalized. She really said such things." Shen Qingtang stood there. Her face pale as a ghost. He didn't stop her anymore. Maybe he knew he couldn't stop her. After the video finished playing, I put away my phone. "Shen Qingtang. This is the third time it's been made public today." He asked blankly. "What third time?" "The first time was in the hospital corridor. Your mother forced me to be magnanimous. The second time was at the client meeting. You and Duan Sinian wanted me to take the blame. The third time was at the Civil Affairs Bureau. You tried to use family ties to blackmail me again. I watched him every time. I showed you the evidence. Not because I like being embarrassed. It's because I don't want to be fooled by you with the word emotion anymore." Shen's mother couldn't cry anymore. Shenjue's head was bowed very low. Shen Qingtang suddenly walked up to me. Then, in everyone's shocked gaze, he slowly knelt down. His voice was broken. "I really know I was wrong." There was an uproar around us. I looked down at her. This woman who was once so proud that even bowing her head felt like charity. Finally, she knelt down at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. But I felt no triumph. Only desolation. I bent down to help her up. A glimmer of hope flickered in her eyes. But I let go. I handed her the divorce papers. And she froze. Refusing to kneel. I said, "Price can't undo the hurt. Nor can it bring back the marriage." The light in his eyes dimmed. I placed the pen on the agreement. "Sign it. Give each other a final bit of dignity." He stared at the pen. His hand trembling violently. After a long while, he finally picked it up and signed his name at the end of the agreement. The 3 characters. Shen Qing Tang, were written crookedly. After signing, he seemed to have all his strength drained away. I took the agreement and handed it to lawyer Zhou. The wind blowing in from the Civil Affairs Bureau carried a chill of early winter. Shen Qing Tang looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. Jie, is it really over? I looked at him and whispered. It ended the night you told me to figure it out myself. I turned and left. Behind me, I heard his suppressed sobs. I didn't turn back. The divorce agreement was signed. But the settlement of assets and debts was not over. Shen Qing Tang agreed to the divorce. It was a choice made in a state of emotional collapse. But when he returned to the mess at the company, his legal counsel and shareholders began to remind him that he was trying to shift some of the debt onto me. I wasn't surprised. A person's true nature isn't revealed when they're crying and apologizing, it's revealed when interests are back on the table. On the day of the first court hearing, my father had been moved from the ICU to a regular ward. He couldn't come. But he called me in the morning. Jie, don't be afraid of the trouble. Settle what needs to be settled. Debts of gratitude are the hardest to repay. But legal debts are the easiest to settle. I laughed. Dad, you're starting to sound more and more like a lawyer. He laughed too, saying he didn't want me to soften my heart again. I paused for a moment, then said, no. At the courthouse, I saw Shen Qing Tang. He was even thinner than he was at the Civil Affairs Bureau. His makeup couldn't hide his exhaustion. The Yaoling crisis was still brewing. After Duan Xinian was investigated, more problems surfaced: false reimbursements and misappropriation of project funds, falsification of client communication records, and even, he had privately promised clients rebates in Shen Qing Tang's name. Shen Qing Tang was overwhelmed with work. But his first words to me were still, Jie, if you're willing to withdraw some of your claims today, I can give you 10% of Yaoling's shares. I looked at him. You still think I want Yaoling? His eyes stung. Then what do you want? I want a clean break. He fell silent. In court, both lawyers began their statements. My demands were clear. First, the premarital property belongs to me. The portion of the mortgage paid jointly after marriage will be compensated according to law. Second, the Shen family's related loans and advances will be recovered according to law. Third, Yaoling Company's debts are unrelated to me, especially the risks incurred by Duan Xinian. These cannot be transferred under the guise of joint marital debt. Fourth, Shen Qing Tang and Yaoling must not continue to publish false information affecting my reputation. Shen Qing Tang's lawyers attempted to argue that although Qin Guang's patent was applied for before marriage, it was commercialized on the Yaoling platform after marriage, therefore, the profits should be partially recognized as joint marital benefits. Attorney Zhou was prepared. He submitted complete RD records, patent application documents, authorization contracts, and my own evidence of the core algorithm model being completed before marriage. He also submitted a 5-year non-exclusive licensing agreement signed by Shen Qing Tang himself. The agreement clearly stated that the patent rights belonged to He Jie personally, and Yaoling Medical only had a non-exclusive license to implement the agreement within the agreed period. After reviewing the agreement, the judge asked Shen Qing Tang if he had signed it himself. Shen Qing Tang was silent for a moment before replying, yes. The judge then asked if he was aware of the relevant rights and obligations when he signed it. His voice was low. At the moment I knew. I had no room for argument. Next came the debt section. Shen's 800,000 yuan down payment. Shen's mother's hospitalization expenses. And supplier debts were all documented. The opposing lawyer argued that these payments occurred during the marriage and were based on mutual assistance among family members, and therefore should not be simply considered loans. Attorney Zhou then played a recording of Shen's mother coming to him to borrow money years ago. I kept the recording not to protect myself from her, but because she repeatedly emphasized that she would definitely repay it within 3 months. I was afraid I wouldn't remember the rest, he said. In the recording, Shen's mother mentioned Jie. Don't worry. This money is a loan from our Shen family. We'll definitely pay it back in 3 to 6 months at most, Shenjue said in another part. Brother-in-law. I can even write you an IOU. It's not free money. In court, Shenjue's face turned as red as if he had been slapped. He didn't expect me to have even these things. Actually, I didn't expect them to come in handy one day. After people's hearts turn cold, All the tolerance in the past becomes evidence. The most interesting part was Duan Xinyan's case. Attorney Zhou submitted his false expense reports and his threatening recording in the stairwell. When the recording played the line, "Your dad is still in the hospital. Right. How much does it cost a day in the ICU? Don't let the patent be gone. The divorce be over. And dad be unable to afford it." Even the judge frowned in court. Shen Qintang sat next to the defendant's seat. His face deathly pale. He finally heard in its entirety what Duan Xinyan had said to him in private. He heard how the man he had once protected and trusted threatened him with his father's life. He slowly lowered his head, his shoulders trembling. But he would never look back at him. The court did not deliver a verdict in court. But its attitude was very clear. After the trial, Shen Qintang caught up with me in the corridor. I stopped. His eyes were terribly red. "That recording. Why didn't you let me listen to it sooner?" I looked at him, finding the question absurd. "Would you believe that?" He paused, then said, "That day at the hospital, when I showed you the screenshots of Duan Xinyan, your first reaction was, why did you take those screenshots?" His lips trembled. "Before my client meeting, when I gave you the materials, your first reaction was, don't make things awkward." Tears streamed down her face. "It's not that I didn't want to show them to you. It's that you never wanted to see them before." She leaned against the wall, almost collapsing. "I was really terribly wrong. I didn't speak." He suddenly asked, "Is Dad all right? Is he recovering? Can I see him one last time?" He didn't need to plead with his eyes. "I just want to apologize." "He doesn't need your apology to recover." He cried. "What about me? What am I going to do?" I looked at him. And for the first time, I felt like he was someone who had lost his way. But that was none of my business anymore. "Shen Qintang. Your company has lawyers. I have my mother and younger brother at home. You're not without someone to care for you." He choked up. "But I don't have you anymore." I said calmly. "This is your choice." After saying that, I walked towards the elevator. Before the elevator doors closed, I saw him standing in the courthouse corridor, covering his face and slowly squatting down. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Lao Chiu. "He Gong and Duan Xinyan have been formally charged." I replied. "I know." Lao Chiu added. "After President Shin came back today, he threw away all of Duan Xinyan's things in the office. He even smashed the 5 million yuan check from the annual meeting." I looked at the message but didn't reply. What's the use of smashing it, when that 5 million yuan was smashed? My father was lying in the emergency room. Some things shatter as soon as they hit the ground. Smashing them again won't bring them back to the way they were before they were broken. A month later, the verdict came down. The court supported my main claims. The premarital property belongs to me. The Shin family's loan is to be returned according to law. Duan Xinyan's related debts are unrelated to me. Yaoling is prohibited from using any statements that may mislead the public. Nor is it allowed to issue any false statements against me. Meanwhile, Shenjua's vehicle was subject to negotiation due to loan and guarantee issues. Shen's mother called me for the first time, crying and saying she was wrong. But I didn't answer. Shen Qintang also sent a long message. He said, "Jie, I accept the verdict. I will pay back the money slowly. Yaoling may be restructured. I don't know what will happen in the future. I used to think I could control everything. Now I realize that I couldn't even keep the person I should cherish most." I read it and deleted it. Not because of hatred, but because I didn't want his regret to take up my life anymore. The day my father was discharged from the hospital, the weather was nice. He sat in a wheelchair, covered with a gray blanket. He was in much better spirits than before. The doctor instructed me to have regular checkups, not to overwork, and to eat a light diet. I wrote down each instruction. My father laughed at me. "You're more long-winded than the doctor now." I said, "I didn't have a chance to take care of you before. But now I'm making up for it." He looked at me with some guilt in his eyes. "Jie, Dad has been a burden to you." I squatted down in front of him and said seriously, "Dad, don't say that again." His eyes reddened. "I was just afraid you'd divorce me for my sake." "I didn't divorce you for your sake," I interrupted him. "It's because I've finally seen clearly who's worth it and who isn't." My father was silent for a long time. Then he nodded. "Let's move on then. After the discharge procedures were completed, Jean Nanchuan personally sent a car to pick me up. Not to put on a show, but because the new project in Lichuan was having its first technical meeting today. He said if it was convenient for me, I could go and take a look. If not, he would take my father home first. My father smiled and pushed me away. Go do your work. Dad's fine now. Uncle Chen will accompany me home. I hesitated. But Uncle Chen said from the side. You go. You keep an eye on me. I'll make sure you get home safely. I nodded then. On the way to Lichuan, I looked out the window. My heart was calmer than ever before. 40 million of the 60 million patent payment had been received. The remaining amount was proceeding according to the process. I moved my father to a better rehabilitation hospital. I also renovated his old house and installed age-friendly facilities. The Shen family's recovery funds were gradually executed. Shen Zhuo sold his car and repaid part of the money. Shen's mother stopped scolding me in the relatives group chat. Instead, someone dug up her old chat history where she boasted about her son-in-law being sensible. She lost a lot of face. Yaoling Medical entered restructuring negotiations. Shen Qintang was still holding on at the company, but he was no longer the high and mighty CEO Shen. After Duan Xinian was placed under investigation, he confessed to many things. It turned out that he was no longer satisfied with being a secretary. While coaxing Shen Qintang, he secretly contacted investors, wanting to take over part of the business at a low price after Yaoling's financing failed. He used part of the 5 million yuan dividend in advance to pay off his own high-interest debt. The knife that Shen Qintang picked up ultimately cut himself. I thought the story was almost over here. Until half a month later, the day before the launch of Lichuan's new product, Shen Jingtang appeared downstairs at my father's rehabilitation hospital. I had just finished accompanying my father to his follow-up examination and was pushing him out when I saw him standing under the ginkgo tree. He was wearing a black trench coat. He was terribly thin. Seeing my dad, his eyes immediately reddened. Dad, my dad's expression turned cold. He used to always greet Shen Qintang with a smile. This time, he just nodded. The words President Shen froze Shen Qintang in place. Tears instantly streamed down his face. Dad. I'm sorry. My dad didn't scold him. He just sighed softly. My life was saved by the doctor. And protected by my son. President Shen. You don't need to apologize to me. I've seen too much of the coldness and warmth of human relationships at my age. Shen Qintang cried. Unable to speak. My dad looked at me. Jie. I'll wait for you in the car. Uncle Chen pushed him away. Under the ginkgo tree. Only Shen Qintang and I remained. He looked at me. His eyes devoid of their former pride. Jie. I didn't come here today to beg you to save Yaoling. I didn't speak. He took an old box from his bag. These are things you used to keep in our marital home. I found them when I moved out. I took it. Inside were several photos and an old USB drive. A ticket stub from an exhibition we saw together in college. And the silver cufflink my mother left me. I'd looked for it before. It had always been in an old drawer in our bridal chamber. I accepted the box and thanked him. He smiled bitterly. So, all you have to say to me now is thank you. I looked at him. I didn't answer. He sniffed. I used to think my career was more important than anything else. I thought you loved me. So you would understand me, tolerate me, and always stand behind me. Duan Xinian would say what I wanted to hear. He would bring me hot water when I was tired. He would give me face in front of clients. I thought that meant he understood me. He looked up at me. And tears fell again. But later I realized that what he gave me was light. What you gave me was heavy. Light things are comfortable to hold. Heavy things sustain life. His voice trembled violently when he said this. If it were half a year ago, I might have felt heartache when I heard him say this. But now I just listen quietly. He continued. After the restructuring of Yaoling, I might step down from management. The company won't be able to stay the same. My mother and Shinjua have also moved out of that big house. During this time, everyone in our family is blaming Duan Xinian. But I know that I should blame myself the most. I said. It's good that you think this way. A faint hope lit up in his eyes, for us. I interrupted him directly. But it's none of my business anymore. The hope on his face shattered instantly. And he choked up. Is there no chance at all? I looked at him. He had asked this question many times. He had asked it on the phone. He had asked it at the Civil Affairs Bureau. He had asked it in the courthouse corridor. Every time. It was like he was waiting for me to soften. But I won't anymore. Shen Tang. Do you still remember the day you called me, asking if I was showing no mercy at all? He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I said, it's not that I didn't show mercy. I didn't expose you directly at the annual meeting because of mercy. I didn't disclose all the details of your family's loans. Only going through legal procedures because of mercy. I didn't post your ambiguous photos with Duan Xinian online because of mercy. I didn't let Li Chuan pursue you relentlessly on the grounds of Yaoling's false advertising because of mercy. That was also mercy. I paused. But the mercy in marriage was used up the day you abandoned my father. She covered her mouth, crying until she bent over. Jie. I really regret it. I said softly. Then remember this regret. Don't treat others like this again. She looked up at me. Will you get married in the future? I thought for a moment. I wonder if you'll ever think of me. I looked at him. Silent for a moment. Yes. His eyes lit up. I continued. But I don't want to go back. His light went out completely. The wind blew through the ginkgo trees. Leaves fell to the ground. I turned to leave. He suddenly called out behind me. Jie. I stopped. His voice choked. If I had earned 800,000 that day. If I hadn't given Duan Xinian 5 million. Would we still be where we are today? I looked back at him. Maybe it wouldn't have been so soon. He paused, wondering what I meant. I said, Shen Tang. 800,000 and 5 million were just the final needle. What truly pierced this marriage was every time you made me compromise over the years. Every time you took my sacrifices for granted. Every time you didn't give me face in front of others. That night was just the last time I couldn't bear it anymore. He stood there. His face as pale as paper. I said to him one last time. Live well. This isn't a blessing. It's just a farewell. As I got into the car. My dad glanced at me and said. That's all. I nodded and said. That's all. He asked if I felt bad. I thought about it and said. A little. He patted my hand. Normal people aren't made of stone. But feeling bad doesn't mean you have to turn back. I smiled. I knew. The car drove away from the rehabilitation hospital. In the rearview mirror, Shen Tang was still standing under the ginkgo tree. She grew smaller and smaller until she disappeared around the corner. I didn't look again. A month later, the Lichuan New Generation Intraoperative Intelligent Monitoring Platform was launched. At the launch event, Jean Nanchuan insisted on placing my name first among the core researchers. I stood below the stage, looking at the 3 characters Jie on the big screen. Suddenly, I felt a little dazed. After all these years, I was finally no longer someone's shadow. After the launch event, Director Li from Guanren Hospital came over and patted my shoulder. Welcome back, Engineer He. I smiled and shook his hand. Please guide me in the future. There was an unread message on my phone from Shen Tang. I watched the launch event. You looked great standing in the light. I glanced at it but didn't reply. Then I put my phone back in my pocket. Applause erupted from below the stage. The lights fell on me. Warm and gentle. I suddenly remembered many years ago. My father was downstairs, drinking beer on a small stool, laughing and saying that my son was making something that would save lives. Back then, I was young. I thought that as long as I gave my heart, I would receive the same appreciation. Later, I realized. Things that save lives shouldn't be given to those who don't know how to cherish them. The same goes for feelings. That night, I returned home. My dad was sitting in the living room watching TV, waiting for me. There was a bowl of hot soup on the table. He heard the door open, turned around, and smiled. You're back, I said, changing my shoes and entering the house. Those 3 simple words. We're back, were more reassuring than any other word from the past 6 years. I walked to the window. The city lights illuminated the night. I once thought that losing Shen Tang would leave me with nothing. Later, I realized I had only lost someone who constantly drained me. My father was still there. My skills were still there. My dignity was still there. My path was still there. As for Shen Tang, he finally understood what regret meant. But that was no longer my responsibility. I wouldn't retaliate to the point of driving him to his death. Nor would I be a saint and turn back to save him. Adults must bear the consequences of their choices. She chose Duan Sinian. She chose 5 million. She chose to leave me to figure things out myself when my dad was facing life and death. I chose to leave. I chose to settle accounts. I chose to take back what belonged to me. From then on. He reflected on his past in his ruins. I'm moving forward in my new life. A broken mirror can't be put back together. Because even if a shattered mirror is glued back together, it will never reflect the person it once was. And I no longer want to see my past self.